This video was made possible by Tab for a Cause. Raise money for charity with every tab you open by signing up at the link in the description. In times of turmoil, it's important to remember that all Americans are united by one shared dream. The dream of Steve Harvey showing up on our doorstep with a large novelty check from Publishers Clearinghouse. You see, more than 55 million Americans enter some form of sweepstakes or contest every year, and these promotions net around $2.8 billion annually for the companies that host them, which might make some of you think, gee, that's a lot of work for poor Steve Harvey, but the smarter of you might think, gee, those figures kind of pale in comparison to the $71 billion that Americans spend on the lottery annually. I mean, really, why don't these companies just host lotteries instead? Aren't sweepstakes just convoluted lotteries? Is this a setup for a long explanation of American lottery law? Well, in order to answer those questions, we first need a long explanation of American lottery law. Right, so by definition, a lottery has three key components: a winner chosen by chance, a prize that has value, and the exchange of money or something of value to enter. Now, only state governments can legally run lotteries, so in order for private businesses to run contests legally, they need to eliminate one of these components. Most do this by eliminating the third, the entry fee. Businesses generally attach their sweepstakes to the purchase of a product, but provide a free method of entry in the fine print. Yep, that's right. Any legal sweepstakes in the United States can be entered for free. That time you suffered through 65 boxes of dry, tasteless animal crackers only to win a lifetime supply of more animal crackers? You could have done that for free. Kind of. In reality, most of these alternate methods of entry require divulging tons of personal data that can then be packaged and sold to telemarketers who will haunt you for the rest of your life. So really, they're only free if you don't value your sanity, or lost it altogether sometime maybe around March 2020. Now, this loophole might work wonders for money-grubbing Yanks, but it doesn't quite cut it up north. Or down south, actually, if you live in Detroit. Canadian law prohibits, quote, disposing of any property by lots, cards, tickets, or any mode of chance whatsoever. Theoretically, this means no lotteries, no sweepstakes, and no gambling on the outcome of underground chimpanzee wrestling matches, even if the underground chimpanzee wrestling matches provide a free method of entry in the fine print. However, bigger Minnesota, also called Canada, still wants to run contests, so since the 19th century, Canadians have tried to subvert these laws by adding small tests of skill to their lotteries and sweepstakes as a qualification for claiming the prize, which means that they're not technically games of chance. You know, sort of like how pizza isn't technically a vegetable, or spending your entire paycheck on half as interesting t-shirts isn't technically a good idea. Up until a few decades ago, private businesses and the Canadian government constantly went to court over what did and didn't count as a game of skill. For example, guessing beans in a jar. According to the Ontario High Court of Justice, that's a skill. Peeling a potato? Not so much. Estimating the time that it would take for a barrel to float down a river? Pure skill. Answering questions about the city of Montreal? Nope. Answering questions about the city of Montreal with the correct answers given to the player before they respond? Shockingly, also a no. Sniping a turkey from 50 yards with a rifle? Well, this should be obvious. Of course not. What sort of early 20th century gentleman can't snipe a turkey from 50 yards with a rifle? This squabbling finally came to a head in 1984 when a Canadian court approved a simple math equation as a suitable test of skill for sweepstakes and lotteries. 228 times 21 plus 10,824 divided by 12 minus 1,121. Go on, I'll give you a few seconds to do some quick maths. Just pretend like your ownership of a brand new luxury catamaran depends on it, but also feel free to pause the video and use a calculator because, much like the Canadian Competition Bureau, I have no way of monitoring when, where, and how you solve the equation. Also, much like the Canadian Competition Bureau, I really don't care that much. Alright, time's up. Did you get 180? Because this was about as easy to cheat on as online AP tests. Anyway, this case set an important precedent, and four-part math equations were adopted nationwide, regulating the largest national lotteries and the smallest local giveaways. Over time, these problems have gotten even simpler, sometimes only using 3 parts and single-digit numbers, or even asking contestants to divide by 1. But, after all, basic arithmetic isn't quite as simple as sniping a turkey from 50 yards with a rifle, so it's still possible to screw up. Though that doesn't necessarily mean that you lose the prize. In fact, a cursory search of Google finds just one example of someone who even came close to being punished for failing a skill testing question. The woman in question won a GPS in a 2007 Tim Hortons giveaway and was asked to solve 8 times 6 minus 5 plus 9. She gave the answer of 51. Tim Hortons asked her to submit a different answer, but feeling satisfied with her first answer, she submitted 51 again. Tim Hortons denied her the GPS at first, but after submitting several complaints over the course of 2 months, she eventually got her prize anyway. So we all like free money, right? And we all like helping others, right? So what if I told you that you could generate free money that is used to help others by doing basically nothing? I mean, that's crazy, right? Nope, that's Tab for a Cause. This browser extension displays a few small ads each time you open a new tab, and then they donate the money generated from that to a nonprofit of your choice. It's that simple, and to prove they're legit, their website is completely open source and they publish quarterly financial reports showing where the money goes. So far, they've raised almost $1 million for worthy causes, and right now they're running a series of campaigns for nonprofits combating the effects of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So start making the world just a tiny bit better by installing the browser extension in less than 30 seconds at tab.gladly.io/HAI.